Hello everyone, welcome to Frightful Whispers. I'm here to guide you into the shadows tonight. I know you're using this video to unwind and drift off to sleep. So, before we begin, don't forget to like the video and subscribe to the channel. Where are you watching from? And what time is it for you? Now, get cozy, relax, and let the whispers of the night take over. I've always been the type to get lost in mysteries. It's not just the thrill of solving them. It's the pull of something hidden, something nobody else has found. That's what makes me feel alive. But tonight I found something I wasn't ready for. Something that would change everything. I was in the university library as usual, poring over the dusty old maps of Greystone. My eyes had scanned these ancient walls and forgotten pathways so many times before, but tonight there was something that caught my attention. A part of the blueprint that wasn't right. There it was, an entire section of the building missing, wiped clean from the plan. A blank spot that didn't exist. I leaned in closer, tracing my fingers along the edges of that strange gap, feeling this pull. This insistent whisper that I needed to know what was there. I knew it. I had to find it. As I packed up my things, the weight of the map in my hands felt like it was heavier than usual, like it was calling me. I tucked it into my bag and made my way down the long, dim hallways of the library. The sound of my shoes echoed in the silence as I walked through the dark corridors of the older parts of the campus, places that had been forgotten, even by the university itself. No tours passed through here, no students roamed these halls, just forgotten history. I turned a corner, and then I saw it. A door at the very end of the hallway, tucked away behind an old wooden sign that had nearly fallen off its hinges. It said, "Staff only," in barely legible letters. Something about the door felt different. It wasn't just that it was old, it felt wrong, like it didn't belong here at all. I stepped closer, my heart starting to pound harder in my chest. It shouldn't have been there. And yet, I knew I couldn't leave without finding out why. I reached for the doorknob, my hand trembling just slightly. The cold metal sent a jolt through my arm, but I didn't pull back. I turned the knob and pushed. The door creaked open with a groan, like it hadn't been opened in years, maybe decades. A rush of stale air hit my face, thick with dust and the scent of old wood. As I stepped inside, I felt the temperature drop. It was as if time had slowed down in this room, as if the world outside had forgotten this place completely. And that's when I saw it. The room. Everything about it was frozen in time. The wallpaper, once a faded rose pattern, now looked like it had been painted with care and left to wither in the shadows. A single lamp sat on a desk near the window, its dim light flickering weakly, casting long, unsettling shadows on the walls. The air was so thick with dust that it felt like I was stepping through a forgotten memory. Everything looked untouched, yet nothing was familiar. I felt like an intruder, like I wasn't meant to be here. But my feet carried me further into the room. My eyes couldn't help but follow the papers scattered across the desk, old books whose titles I couldn't make out, and a strange sense of stillness that permeated everything. It wasn't just quiet. It was unnatural. This place shouldn't exist in this time. I took another step, and that's when I saw it. In the far corner of the room, by the window, was a figure. A woman. She stood perfectly still as if carved out of marble. Her face was obscured by tangled hair, but there was something about her, something that made my heart skip a beat. For a moment, I thought it was a trick of the light, or perhaps a dusty old mannequin that had been left behind. But something about her was wrong. "Hello?" My voice came out as a whisper, barely breaking the silence. I didn't expect an answer. I didn't want an answer. But then, the woman turned her head. My body froze. My heart stopped. Her eyes, those eyes, hollow, black, empty. They stared right at me, and for a moment I couldn't breathe. She wasn't just looking at me, she was seeing me, and I could feel it deep in my bones, that icy touch of something ancient, something that had no place in this world. And then, she was gone, disappeared, like she'd never been there at all. I stood there, my mind racing, my breath catching in my throat. Was it real? Had I imagined it? My eyes darted around the room, searching for any sign of movement, but there was nothing. Nothing but the heavy silence and the dim glow of the lamp. My hands were shaking as I turned toward the desk, hoping to find something, anything, that could explain what had just happened. That's when I saw it. An old, leather-bound diary, resting on the desk as if it had been waiting for me. I opened it carefully, feeling the brittle pages beneath my fingers, and began to read. The handwriting inside was neat at first, until it wasn't. The entries were dated, and the first few told a story of a young woman named Eliza Summers, a student who had walked these very halls decades ago. She wrote about classes, friends, and the usual worries of college life. But soon her tone began to change. The words became erratic, the sentences fragmented, as if she were losing her grip on reality. I hear her again. She whispers to me when I'm alone. I feel her in the shadows, just waiting. The entries grew darker, more paranoid. She watches me when I sleep. I can't escape her. I can't leave the room. The door is locked, always locked. I've tried. She won't let me go. The handwriting was a mess now, jagged, scrawled across the page in a frenzy. The ink seemed to bleed with the desperation in her words. I'm not sure if I'm real anymore. She has taken me, I think. I see her face when I look in the mirror, but it's not my face. It's hers. The door is gone, the room has become my cage. I dropped the diary, my hands trembling. I could feel it then, the weight of her presence in the room, suffocating, pressing against my chest. I wasn't alone, not anymore. The whispers started then. At first they were faint, almost imperceptible. But then they grew louder, filling the space around me with their cold, insistent tone. A voice, soft, rasping, like the sound of dead leaves being blown in the wind, whispered my name. Rachel. I spun around, my heart hammering in my chest. But there was nothing. Nothing except the oppressive stillness. And then I saw it. The figure. Again. Standing in the same corner just like before. This time, I couldn't look away. She turned slowly, and her hollow eyes locked onto mine. The same twisted, dark gaze that sent a chill through my very soul. You shouldn't have come, the voice rasped. I turned toward the door, my hands fumbling for the handle. It wouldn't budge. Panic surged through me as I pulled harder, my breath quickening. The door was locked, but that wasn't the worst part. The worst part was when I turned back and realized the door was no longer there. The wall had sealed itself, smooth and solid, like it had never been there to begin with. The room had trapped me. I backed up against a mirror on the far wall, hoping to find some way out, but when I looked into it, when I saw my own reflection staring back at me, it wasn't me anymore. The woman smiled, the reflection twisting into something unrecognizable. And I knew then that I wasn't just a visitor. I was the new occupant. The room had chosen me, and there would be no leaving. I don't know how to explain what happened that night. I can still feel it, like an itch in the back of my mind that I can't scratch away. It all started when I noticed something strange while poring over the university's old maps. The floor plans. Everything seemed normal at first until I saw it. A section of the building missing. Completely gone. It didn't make any sense. This was supposed to be a place I knew inside and out. Yet this section wasn't on any blueprint. No one had ever mentioned it, and no one had ever told me it existed. Curiosity. It's both a gift and a curse, right? I couldn't stop myself. I had to find out what was hidden there, what had been left out. So I grabbed my things, tucked the map into my bag, and headed straight for that part of the university, the older, darker part that nobody seemed to bother with anymore. The halls were eerily quiet, as if even the building itself had forgotten about that part of the campus. The air was dense with dust, and the dim lights overhead flickered in a way that made me feel like I was walking through a place frozen in time. The farther I went, the more the silence pressed in on me. And then, there it was, just ahead. A door. Nothing special about it except for the fact that it shouldn't have been there. No signs, no indication that anyone had been through it for years. But something about it. I couldn't resist. My fingers brushed the cold handle, the moment stretching out. I turned the knob. The door groaned as it swung open, as if it had been locked for far too long, and that's when the air hit me. Stale, heavy. It was the kind of air you smell in forgotten places. I stepped inside, and that's when everything changed. The room was frozen. Everything in it looked like it had been abandoned for decades, yet it was perfectly intact. The wallpaper was old and peeling, roses faded beyond recognition. The furniture looked like it hadn't moved in years. There was an old desk in the corner with papers scattered on top of it, books leaning precariously to one side. A single lamp sat on the desk, flickering weakly, casting shadows that seemed to stretch too long. I felt like I had stepped into a snapshot from another time. Something trapped here, suspended, frozen. The stillness of the room crept over me, making my skin prickle. The quiet was too quiet. It felt wrong. Like something was hiding in the corners, waiting, watching. My heart started to pound in my chest, but I couldn't move. I needed to know more. I had to know why this place felt so off. As I walked deeper into the room, my eyes kept darting around, trying to make sense of what I was seeing. But I couldn't. There was something about it, like it wasn't supposed to exist. Then my gaze landed on a photograph, a frame tarnished with age, resting casually on the edge of the desk. I leaned in, my curiosity piqued. The photograph was of a woman, young, beautiful, with a simple smile on her face. Her eyes were full of life. She looked normal, but something in the background caught me off guard. I recognized it. The hallway, the tall windows, the faint glow of sunlight streaming in. But that was impossible. I'd never seen this place before. Never. I flipped the photo over. On the back, written in faded ink, was a name, Eliza Summers. My throat went dry. Eliza Summers. The name sounded so familiar. My mind raced, and then it hit me. The diary, the one I had read just moments ago. The one that had described the very same person. The woman whose insanity had been documented, whose spirit had somehow been trapped here, in this room, frozen in time. I stepped back, my heart racing. The air was thick now, heavier. I turned toward the desk, my hands trembling as I reached for the leather-bound diary. I opened it carefully, feeling the brittle pages beneath my fingertips. As I flipped through the worn pages, I could feel her. Eliza. Her presence in the words. The first few entries were typical for a student. Thoughts about classes, friends, and the everyday stuff that filled her life. But as the pages went on, the writing became jagged, scrawled, frantic. She's here again, the woman. She watches me when I sleep. I can hear her footsteps. I can feel her. I don't know how much longer I can stay. The door won't open. I'm stuck in here with her. I can't get out. I think I've gone mad. The room. It's not just a room anymore. It's alive. It has me. It keeps me here. My blood ran cold. Her descent into madness, it was all written here, in these pages. The madness wasn't just in her mind. The room had taken her. It had kept her trapped, and it had not let her go. I stood there, staring at the diary, my breath shallow. A chill ran through me. Something about the room had changed. Something else was here. That's when I saw it. In the far corner of the room, near the window, stood a figure. At first, I thought it was another trick of the light. My mind playing games with me, but no. She was there, a woman. Her back was turned to me, but the way she stood, it was unnatural. She didn't move, didn't breathe. Her form was pale, almost translucent, and the longer I looked at her, the more she seemed to blend into the room, like she was a part of the wallpaper itself. I froze. My heart skipped a beat. "Hello?" My voice came out softer than I expected, shaking with fear. The figure didn't respond. She just stood there. I took a tentative step forward, unsure of what I was doing. Something was pulling me toward her, something I couldn't resist. But then she turned, and I saw her eyes, empty, hollow, dark as the void. I couldn't move. I couldn't breathe. The woman didn't say a word, but her gaze locked onto mine. Piercing, relentless. Her eyes weren't eyes at all. They were pits. Empty holes that seemed to drain all the light from the room, sucking me in with their darkness. I tried to scream. I tried to run. But before I could even blink, she was gone. Just like that. Vanished. As if she had never been there. But the room felt different. Heavier. More suffocating. The silence was back, but it wasn't the same as before. It wasn't peaceful anymore. It felt like something was watching me. Something that wasn't ready to let me leave. Something that had been waiting. I didn't know how long I stood there. Minutes? Hours? The seconds stretched into infinity, and every inch of the room felt like it was closing in on me. I glanced at the door. I needed to leave. I couldn't breathe here anymore. I turned toward the exit, my mind racing with the terror of what had just happened. But when I reached for the door, something was wrong. It wouldn't open. I pulled, pushed, yelled, but nothing happened. The door was sealed shut. And that's when I realized there was no door anymore. I spun around, panic flooding my chest. The walls, they had sealed. The door had vanished. The room had closed itself off from me. The air was suffocating now. My head spun. And as I stumbled backward, my eyes caught something in the corner of the room, a mirror. I don't know why, but I walked toward it. Something compelled me to look into it. And when I did, my reflection wasn't mine. It was hers, the woman, Eliza. And as I stared at the mirror, I realized one horrible truth. I wasn't the visitor anymore. I was the new occupant. The room had claimed me, and there was no way out. I don't know why I picked it up. Maybe it was because it was just there, resting on the desk like it had been waiting for me. Maybe I was too curious. I couldn't help myself. The diary felt strange in my hands. Heavy, worn, almost like it had been touched by someone else far too many times. The leather cover was cracked with age, and the pages inside looked fragile, as though they could crumble away with just one wrong move. But there it was, sitting in front of me, an invitation I couldn't resist. I flipped it open, almost expecting to see more of the mundane details of someone's life, something to explain this weird, suffocating room I had stumbled into. The first few pages were innocuous enough. They told of a student's life, a girl named Eliza Summers, attending Greystone University in the 1940s. She wrote about her classes, her friends, the things every college student worries about. But even from the beginning, there was something off about the way she wrote. The words felt weighted, like they were more than just casual thoughts, like they were being forced out of her. I kept reading. October 2nd, 1943. Today was a good day. The sun was shining brightly as I walked across the campus. I met with Professor Harper about my thesis. He was impressed with my progress. I feel like I'm finally fitting in here. I'm starting to feel like I might actually belong. At first, it seemed normal enough, but as I turned the pages, I started noticing the subtle cracks in the surface, the small hints of something wrong, something unraveling beneath the carefully constructed facade. October 5th, 1943. I hear her again. She's watching me. I don't know if it's my imagination, but I can feel her presence in the room. I hear her whispering my name when the lights are off. Or maybe it's just my mind playing tricks. But I swear, every time I close my eyes, I feel her. She's here. I don't know who she is. I could feel a knot tighten in my stomach as I read those words. The whispers. The feeling of being watched. I thought it was just paranoia, but reading Eliza's entry, it felt real. Almost too real. A part of me wanted to stop right there, to slam the book shut and forget I had ever come into this room. But something in me, some horrible, sick curiosity, kept me going. October 8th, 1943. She's not just in my head anymore. She's standing in the corner of the room now. I can see her when I wake up in the night. She doesn't move, doesn't speak, just stands there, staring at me. I can't look away. I don't know how much longer I can stay here. I think she's trying to take me. I think she's trying to pull me into the shadows. I gasped. I couldn't breathe. I looked up from the diary, my eyes darting around the room, expecting to see the same figure, her, standing there, staring at me, just like Eliza had described. But there was nothing. Nothing except the cold emptiness of the room. My hands were shaking as I turned the page. October 12th, 1943. I don't know what's real anymore. The room isn't the same. It's closing in on me. I tried to leave. I tried to open the door, but it won't budge. Every time I turn the handle, I end up back here, at the desk, the chair, the same place, the same thing over and over again. I don't know how long I've been here. The days are blending together. It feels like time doesn't exist anymore. I'm trapped. She won't let me go. I could feel it. The pressure in my chest as I read her words. The same feeling I had when I entered this room. The feeling of being trapped, of being caught in a loop, unable to escape. I glanced over my shoulder again, half expecting the walls to close in around me, to somehow seal me off from the world like they had done to her. October 14th, 1943. She's in my reflection now. When I look in the mirror, I don't see myself anymore. I see her, the woman. She's taken my face. She's taken me. I'm not Eliza anymore. I don't know who I am. I see her every time I close my eyes, every time I look in the mirror. I think I'm becoming her. I think I'm becoming a part of this room. I stopped reading. My heart was hammering in my chest, and the room felt smaller, tighter. The words blurred in front of me, as if I couldn't focus on anything anymore. The writing was frantic, panicked. She was slipping away, losing herself, and something was pulling her in. Something had taken her, and I could feel it crawling under my skin, too. I put the diary down, my breath shallow. My skin was cold, but I couldn't move. I couldn't escape the feeling that Eliza's nightmare was still unfolding. That whatever she had experienced was now mine to endure. The room had never felt so alive. The walls seemed to pulse, the shadows stretching in ways that weren't natural. I could hear the whispers now, too, soft, like a breath in the dark. Rachel. I whirled around, but there was nothing, no figure, no movement, just the cold, empty room. But the whispers, they didn't stop. And that's when I understood. Eliza hadn't just written these words, she had become them. She had become part of the room, trapped, her essence, her soul, lingering in the very walls. She was still here, still waiting. And now, with the diary in my hands, I realized something far more terrifying. I was no longer just reading her story. I was becoming part of it. I was becoming part of the room, and I was not going to leave. You wouldn't believe me if I told you. I know it sounds insane, but I swear to you, everything I experienced that night, everything I felt, was real. It's still with me, this heaviness, like something is pressing in on me from all sides. I don't know how to explain it, but what happened, it changed me. It all started with a map, of all things. Greystone University has a reputation for being old, but I never thought it had secrets. But then, one night, while I was buried in some old archives, I noticed it. A section of the campus that didn't exist. I mean, it wasn't on the blueprints, no one had ever mentioned it, just a blank space. It stood out like a sore thumb. There was something wrong about it. I couldn't leave it alone. I had to find out what was hidden behind that gap. So I went. I remember walking through the empty, dimly lit halls, those old corridors where even the air feels stale, like the walls are holding their breath. I was drawn to the end of one particular hallway, to a door I'd never noticed before. It didn't look special, just a simple wooden door, but something about it felt off. My hand was shaking when I turned the knob. The door creaked open and cold air hit me, thick and old, like it hadn't been disturbed in decades. Stepping inside felt like crossing a threshold into another world. A world that was frozen in time. The room was bizarre. It wasn't like the rest of the university. The wallpaper was peeling. Roses faded into the wall as though they were slowly being erased. Dust hung in the air like fog, and there was a single lamp, glowing weakly, casting strange shadows that seemed too long. The place wasn't abandoned. It was preserved. Trapped. Like it had been waiting for something. I don't know what I expected to find. A dusty old office, a forgotten closet. But then I saw the desk, papers scattered across it, old books, a photo frame. I leaned in closer to examine them, but something caught my eye. It was the photo, her photo. It was of a woman, young, vibrant, standing in front of a window I couldn't place. Her eyes were full of life, full of hope, but something about the background, the room, the hallway behind her, looked familiar. It wasn't the university I knew. I had never seen it before, yet it felt like I should have. I turned the frame over. There, in faded ink, were the words, Eliza Summers. The name hit me like a punch to the gut. Eliza, I had seen it before. The diary. My blood ran cold. I couldn't ignore it any longer. The name, the photo, it was the same woman from the journal. The one whose mind had unraveled, whose words had bled onto the pages, frantic and broken. Without thinking, my hands reached for the diary. It was an old leather book, the edges worn, as if it had been read over and over, until the pages themselves had become fragile. I opened it. The first few pages were typical. A student's life, classes, friends, worries, normal. But then the writing changed. It was subtle at first, just a few notes about sleepless nights, voices in the walls. The entries became darker, the handwriting more jagged. October 5th, 1943. I hear her again. She's watching me. I don't know if it's my imagination, but I can feel her. I hear her whisper my name when the lights go out. I thought it was just my mind playing tricks. But I swear, every time I close my eyes, she's there. watching me. The whispers, the feeling of being watched. It was like I was hearing Eliza's thoughts, feeling her descent into madness. Her words were becoming my own fears. I couldn't stop reading. October 8th, 1943. She's not in my head anymore. I can see her now. She's standing in the corner of the room. I don't know if I'm imagining it or if I'm going mad, but I swear she's there every night watching me. She doesn't move, doesn't speak. She just stands there, waiting. I think I'm losing myself. I felt cold. The hairs on the back of my neck stood up. She was describing it, the figure. The same figure I had seen in the corner of the room, standing so still, like she was part of the room itself. October 12th, 1943. I don't know how much longer I can stay. The room won't let me leave. The door is locked. I try to open it, but it's sealed shut. I keep going in circles, coming back to the same place. This desk, this lamp. I can't escape. The walls are closing in on me. I think I've been here for weeks. Time doesn't make sense anymore. I stopped reading for a moment. I had to. It was as though Eliza was writing from inside the walls, trapped in time, echoing her madness through the centuries. I glanced around the room, and it was then I noticed it. The space wasn't just frozen, it was alive. It was pressing in. The silence felt too quiet now. I could feel it in my chest. The weight of something shifting in the air, the presence of something I couldn't see, but knew was there. My thoughts swirled, and when I looked back down at the diary, I saw more. October 14th, 1943. She's inside me now. I see her in the mirror. When I look, I don't see myself. I see her. She's taking over. I don't know who I am anymore. I can't tell if I'm waking or dreaming. I can't tell if she's me or if I'm her. The room is changing me. I felt dizzy. The room was closing in, the walls tightening. I had been standing still too long. The whispers were growing louder now, seeping through the cracks in my mind, just like they had in Eliza's. I could almost hear her voice in the air, beckoning me forward, pulling me into the very fabric of the room. I looked around desperately. The door, the exit, it had to be there. But when I turned, I saw the truth. The door wasn't there anymore. It was gone. The walls had sealed themselves. I took a step back. The mirror. I had to look at it. I didn't want to, but my body moved without me, as if something inside was controlling me. Slowly, I walked toward it, my heartbeat hammering in my chest. When I stood in front of the glass, I didn't see myself. I saw her. Eliza's face stared back at me, pale, empty, hollow. Her dark eyes were my eyes, and her twisted smile, it wasn't mine. And that's when I realized. I wasn't trapped in her story anymore. I had become part of it. I wasn't going to leave. And the room had taken me. It had claimed me just like it had claimed Eliza. Now, I was just another lost soul, waiting in the shadows, my story sealed in the walls forever. And it would wait. For the next person. For someone else to step inside. I don't expect you to believe me. Hell, I barely believe it myself. But I can't shake what happened. Not a day goes by when I don't think about it, when I don't feel it, deep in my bones. The weight of that room, the suffocating air, the presence that followed me. I need to tell someone. I need to share this, because the more I try to bury it, the more it comes crawling back. It started with something small. A map. You wouldn't think that could lead to something like this, would you? A simple blueprint of Greystone University. Old, faded, tucked away in the archives like it had been forgotten. But something caught my eye. There was a section of the building missing. Not a mistake, no. Something gone. Erased. At first, I thought it was just an error, some outdated version of the plans. But then I saw it again, that section, the space. It didn't exist. It wasn't part of the building's layout, and no one had ever mentioned it. And that's when the pull started. Curiosity, my greatest flaw. I had to know what was there. So I went. I shouldn't have. But I did. I walked through the old halls, the ones no one really used anymore, the ones that smelled like dust and secrets. There was something in the air, something strange, something thick with the past. My footsteps echoed too loudly, like the building itself was alive, watching me as I moved deeper into its heart. And that's when I found it. The door. It didn't look like much. Just a plain wooden door at the end of a forgotten hallway. But there was something about it. Something that felt wrong. Like it didn't belong. I reached for the handle, and when I twisted it, the door groaned open, and a rush of cold, stale air slapped me in the face. I stepped inside. The moment I did, I felt it. The shift. The room felt wrong. Like it was frozen in time. The wallpaper, faded, peeling roses, was stuck in a past I couldn't quite place. The room was perfectly still, but it wasn't empty. It was alive. The air felt thick with something old, something forgotten. And then I saw it. A figure in the corner of the room. At first, I thought my eyes were playing tricks. But no. There was a woman standing there. Pale, too still, her back to me. Her hair hung in dark, matted strands that hid most of her face. But her presence, it clung to the room like she was part of it. I couldn't move. I couldn't breathe. And then she turned. Her eyes, empty, hollow, black as the void. They locked onto me, and I could feel them, sinking into me, draining me. I couldn't look away. I should have run, but I couldn't. And then just like that, she was gone. Vanished. I stood there, frozen, my heart pounding in my chest. The room was silent again, but it wasn't the same silence. The air felt heavier now, pressing in on me. The walls were watching me, waiting. I moved toward the desk, trying to shake the feeling of her eyes still burning into me. There was a leather-bound diary sitting there. I didn't want to touch it. I really didn't. But I did. I opened it. The pages were old, worn, fragile. The ink faded but still legible. And as I began to read, I felt the world shift again. The words weren't just ink on paper, they were alive. I could feel Eliza's presence in every line, every word. I knew it was her, the woman, the one from the corner. At first, the entries were simple, ordinary, a student's life, classes, friends, a future. But then, the writing began to change, the tone, shifting, desperate. October 5th, 1943. I hear her again. She's watching me. I don't know if it's my imagination, but I can feel her. I hear her whisper my name when the lights go out. I thought it was just my mind playing tricks. But I swear, every time I close my eyes, she's there, watching me. I couldn't stop reading, even though I wanted to. Even though I felt the room growing colder, darker, tighter around me. The words pulled me in, kept me going, like a gravity I couldn't escape. October 8th, 1943. She's not in my head anymore. I can see her now. She's standing in the corner of the room. I don't know if I'm imagining it or if I'm going mad, but I swear she's there, every night, watching me. She doesn't move, doesn't speak. She just stands there, waiting. I think I'm losing myself. I felt it. My stomach dropped. I could feel her, Eliza, in the room with me. The shadows, the air, the cold. It was all her. She was here. And I could feel her thoughts pressing against my mind, suffocating me. October 12th, 1943. I don't know how much longer I can stay. The room won't let me leave. The door is locked. I try to open it, but it's sealed shut. I keep going in circles, coming back to the same place, this desk, this lamp. I can't escape. The walls are closing in on me. I think I've been here for weeks. Time doesn't make sense anymore. I felt it too, the walls closing in, the air thickening, the whispers growing louder, and then, October 14th, 1943. She's inside me now. I see her in the mirror. When I look, I don't see myself. I see her. She's taking over. I don't know who I am anymore. I can't tell if I'm waking or dreaming. I can't tell if she's me or if I'm her. The room is changing me. I dropped the diary, my hands trembling. The room shifted around me. The walls creaked, groaned, like they were alive. The air was suffocating now, thick with dread. I turned to the door. It had to be there. It had to be my way out. But when I reached for it, I felt it. The door wasn't there anymore. I spun around, panic flooding my chest. The walls, they had sealed themselves. The door was gone. There was no way out. I felt her, Eliza. She was still here, watching me, waiting for me to become part of the room, like she had. I turned to the mirror in the corner, unable to stop myself. The reflection didn't show me. It showed her. It was me, but it wasn't me. The smile that crept across my face wasn't mine. And that's when I understood. I wasn't just trapped in this room. I was becoming part of it, part of Eliza's story, part of this place. And the worst part? The room wasn't just trapping me, it was claiming me. It had claimed her. And now, it had claimed me too. I was never going to leave. And the room, it would wait for the next person, the next fool to come through that door. Just like I had. I have to tell you this. I don't know why I'm doing it. Maybe because I can't keep it inside anymore. Maybe because I want someone, anyone, to understand what happened. But you won't believe me, you can't. No one could. It all started with a map. I know how it sounds, ridiculous, really. But it's true. I was going through the old blueprints of Greystone University, just another late night trying to dig into the university's history. I'd spent so many hours in that library, combing through dusty old pages. But this was different. There was a section of the campus, missing, completely gone. No rooms, no corridors, no spaces. Just erased. At first, I thought it was a mistake, some outdated version of the map. But the more I looked, the more I felt it. Something wasn't right. There was something hidden here, something that had been deliberately concealed. I had to know. I had to see it for myself. That night, I made my way down to the older part of the building. The halls were quiet, eerily so. The lights flickered, casting long shadows that danced against the walls. The air smelled old, musty, like time had forgotten this part of the campus. It felt wrong. But still I pressed forward. My curiosity gnawed at me. And then I found it. A door at the end of the hall, unmarked, unnoticed. It didn't look like much, just an old wooden door. But when I reached for the handle, it was ice cold. I twisted it and stepped inside. And that's when everything changed. The moment I crossed the threshold, the air shifted. It was like stepping into another world, one that hadn't seen the light of day in years. The room was frozen in time. Everything was still, like it had been abandoned but never touched. The wallpaper was peeling. The roses faded into the wall like ghosts of a forgotten past. A single lamp flickered weakly on a desk, casting long, distorted shadows on the floor. I was alone, or at least I thought I was. Then I saw her. A woman standing in the corner of the room. She was still, her back to me, her face obscured by dark, matted hair. She didn't move, not at first. I thought maybe she was just some forgotten figure, a mannequin or an illusion. But then she turned. Her eyes. those eyes. Empty. Hollow. Black. They stared at me, right through me, as if she could see into the deepest parts of my soul. I could feel her gaze, cold and suffocating. I couldn't breathe. I couldn't move. I should have run. I should have left. But I couldn't. Then she was gone. Vanished, just like that. I didn't know what to think. I didn't know if I had imagined it, if the isolation of the room had started to mess with my mind. But the air still felt wrong. It felt thick, as though something was waiting. I turned to the desk, my heart pounding in my chest. I needed something to explain it, some answer. I needed to understand. And then I saw it. A diary, old, worn. It sat there, waiting for me. I opened it. The handwriting was faint, but still legible. The first few pages were nothing extraordinary, just a young woman's thoughts, a student's daily life. Her name was Eliza Summers. I could feel the weight of her life pressing through the ink, her hopes and fears, all written there for anyone who dared to read. But then it changed. October 5th, 1943. I hear her again. She's here. I don't know if it's my imagination, but I can feel her. I hear her whisper my name when the lights go out. I thought it was just my mind playing tricks, but I swear, every time I close my eyes, she's there. I froze. I could feel it, the whispers. I could feel them now, faint, just on the edge of hearing. My heart thudded in my chest. Was it Eliza? Was she still here, or was I just imagining it? I turned the page. October 8th, 1943. She's not in my head anymore. I see her now, standing in the corner. I thought I was imagining it, but she's there every night, watching me. She doesn't move, doesn't speak, she just watches. I think I'm losing myself. I think I'm becoming her. My throat went dry. I could see it. I could see the woman in the corner again, the same figure I'd seen when I entered. My mind was racing. Was I just reading Eliza's madness, or was this real? But as I read more, something inside me knew. It was real. All of it. October 12th, 1943. I can't leave. The door is locked. Every time I try to leave, I end up back here, at the desk, at the chair. The room won't let me go. It won't let me out. I think I've been here for days, weeks. I don't know. Time doesn't make sense anymore. I could feel her in the room too. Eliza, trapped just like she had been. The walls were closing in on me. I could almost hear her whispering, her voice merging with mine, filling my mind with thoughts that weren't my own. October 14th, 1943. I see her in the mirror now. When I look, I don't see myself. I see her. She's taking over. I don't know who I am anymore. I think I'm becoming a part of the room. The room felt suffocating now, pressing against me. The walls seemed to breathe with the same rhythm as my heart. The air was too thick, too dense. I tried to get up, to leave, but my feet were rooted to the floor. And that's when I realized. The door. It wasn't there anymore. The walls. The room. It was closing in. The door had disappeared. The way out had been swallowed by the room itself. I couldn't escape. I couldn't leave. The reflection in the mirror. It wasn't just Eliza anymore. It was me. Her eyes were my eyes. Her smile, my smile. I wasn't just a visitor anymore. I was part of the room, part of the madness, part of Eliza's story. The room had claimed me. I reached for the door, desperate, pulling at the walls, pushing, banging. But it wouldn't open. It wouldn't budge. I could feel Eliza in my head now, her thoughts mixing with mine, her voice whispering, "You're one of us now. We'll never leave. Not until someone else comes to take our place." I looked around the room, the shadows creeping closer. The whispers were getting louder now, filling my mind, my heart, my very soul. I knew what was happening. I could feel it. The room was swallowing me whole. It wasn't just a room, it was a trap. A trap that would keep us forever repeating the cycle, pulling in anyone foolish enough to stumble across its threshold. No one ever leaves, no one. And then, the door. The door was back. I saw it again, standing in the corner, just like before. But this time, I knew the truth. I had become the next occupant. The room had claimed me, and I would never leave. Thank you for venturing into the shadows with me here at Frightful Whispers. Remember, the darkness holds secrets, but also whispers truths to those who dare to listen. If tonight's tale sent shivers down your spine, be sure to like, share, and subscribe. It helps keep the fire of fright alive. Rest easy, but keep one eye open, for the night is never truly still. Until we meet again, stay vigilant, stay curious, and let the whispers guide you.